So the most interesting thing a couple days ago, the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI, which are a little bit compromised, I think most people would agree when it comes to political matters, they indicted, I think is the phrase they use in the States, two Russian nationals, two citizens of Russia, who are alleged to have worked with the Russian propaganda TV station called RT, or it used to be called Russia Today, to set up a company in the United States that hid all traces of the Russian control and Russian money, to set up this company in Tennessee, run by a fairly well-known conservative YouTube talent, recruiting other conservative YouTube talent. And according to the shocking document released by the Department of Justice, they recruited other talent, paying them up to $100,000 a video. I have to tell you, that's the most astonishing thing of it. The fact that Russia is interested in influencing the U.S. or any country's debate is not that surprising, although it's always interesting. But the fact that they were paying up to $100,000 a video is the most astonishing thing I've ever heard. You know, $400,000 a month some of these folks were making for 4 videos. Now, the company is called Tenet, T-E-N-E-T Media, and they announced yesterday that they're shutting down because of this Department of Justice investigation. Tenet Media was run by a young woman originally from Montreal named Lauren Chen and her husband Liam, who since relocated to Tennessee. And I remember when Tenet Media was born, they hired some very interesting people that I would call sort of the dissident right. Tim Pool, who actually started off on the Occupy Wall Street type side of things. I think he's one of the smartest guys in the business, by the way. Very clever, very thoughtful. I had the pleasure of being on his show once. Benny Johnson, who you might know from the States. He's sort of a Trump supporter who sometimes goes out into the field. Dave Rubin, who used to be a comedian, used to be a man in the left. Then he went on tour with Jordan Peterson, thoughtful YouTuber. Lauren Southern, one of our long ago alumni who we parted ways with, I don't know, about 7 or 8 years ago now. So these were some recognizable names, a couple names I didn't know. And I was just blown away when I heard how much money they were being paid. And I checked my notes and I wrote to one of my friends. I said, who's behind this? Like, in what possible universe can you build a company paying people $100,000 a video? Now, there are some YouTubers who are so huge that, yes, they will make $100,000 per video in ads. I don't know if you've heard of the YouTuber Mr. Beast, or I suppose some pop music. If you're getting 100 million views, sure, you'll make $100,000 or even more. But this $100,000 per video were for videos that were getting 50 or $100,000 views, which maybe would be worth $1,000 or $2,000 in the YouTube market. So I thought something was very strange. I didn't quite understand it, but I didn't put a lot of thought to it. But boy, does it look different now that I see this Department of Justice memo. I mean, here, let me quote from it. A key member identified as commentator number 1 was to be paid $400,000 per month plus $100,000 signing bonus, while commentator 2's contract was for $100,000 per video. Just astonishing. So you'll see in the Department of Justice document, they don't actually name anyone other than the 2 Russian nationals who are facing charges. So Lauren Chen and her husband and these contributors, as far as we know, have not been charged with anything, although I find it hard to imagine that Lauren Chen wouldn't be charged. Some of the people I've mentioned, such as Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin, have put out statements on Twitter saying they had no idea that the money was from Russia. They were told when they asked that it was from an investor named Edward Gregorian. And frankly, if someone offered you $100,000 a video, maybe you wouldn't ask too many questions, especially according to Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, and Dave Rubin and their statements online, especially if there was no editorial control. I mean, I suppose if someone ever said to me, Ezra, you're making videos every day, give us one of them and we'll put it on our YouTube channel and pay you $100,000 a pop. You keep doing your thing. You keep choosing your content. We won't have any say in it. I mean, That just sounds so fantastical and unrealistic. I hesitate even to think about it because that's just such a fantasy scenario. It would be like being asked, what happens if you win the lottery? I suppose if I could be totally certain that I was in complete control of what I said, why wouldn't I take $100,000 a video? And if I said, well, who's behind it? And I was told some mysterious European was behind it, my spider senses might be tingling, but on the other hand, there would be a pile of money. I don't know. So I do accept that Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin had no idea where the money came from. But I'll notice that Lauren Southern and Lauren Chen are being completely silent since the Department of Justice made their announcement. It tells me that perhaps they weren't caught off guard from things. So I watched Tenet with some eagerness because I saw, wow, they're assembling sort of this league of superheroes from conservative or dissident YouTube. And I thought it was interesting. And I was sort of waiting for the action. And the first real thing that I viewed as a Tenet Media production was this bizarre moment when an anti-Semitic alt-right, bomb thrower, jokester, comedian. I don't even know how he would be described. He's very racist, very anti-Semitic. His name is Nick Fuentes. He had some sort of a counter rally against a conservative rally, and Tenet Media covered it like it was a serious, credible political event. I was astonished by this, that something which had the formidable names I mentioned before would be giving so much attention to a fringe, bizarre, clownish, anti-Semitic character. I didn't get it. I mean, normally, if someone is that extreme, a racist, they don't have access to significant investors. They're sort of on their own citizen dissident. I thought something was funny, and I didn't pay a lot more attention to Tenet after that, but in the wake of the DOJ, Department of Justice announcement a couple of days ago, I've gone back and I've seen some of the things that Lauren Chen, the boss of Tenet, were saying, and they definitely took a turn when Tenet Media started towards anti-Semitism, which is weird, and towards being anti-Trump from the right. And what I mean by that is, Lauren Chen and others in that circle, it would not be credible if they were to attack Trump from the left, because the names I mentioned are pretty much all pro-Trump. But Lauren Chen in particular was saying things like, well, Trump is not pro-life enough, I'm out, to sort of cause some dissonance and dissonance on the right. And now that these charges, these accusations of Russian money, it starts to make some sense. It runs counter to the traditional narrative that Putin wants Trump to win. Putin is supporting Russia. If you look at what the money was paid for based on Lauren Chen's own posts, it was to attack Trump, to make him seem iffy, which suggests they want, the more malleable Kamala Harris to win. I didn't really know Lauren Chen that well. I saw her out of the corner of my eye over the years, and I invited her to work with Rebel News at the time. But she was working with RT even back then. And of course, we couldn't have someone who was an RT personality also doing videos for us. And there was a strange phenomenon where she started attacking people who were pro-Israel, and generally if you're pro-Israel, you're pro-America. I really don't know one without the other, accusing people of taking shekels, that's Israeli money, if you were, or Jewish money, if you were pro-Israel, it's because you were taking shekels from a foreign paymaster. That's sort of an anti-Semitic slur, sort of a light anti-Semitic slur. But now that you see that Lauren Chen herself was the funnel for almost $10 million, it's even more ironic. The commentator Will Chamberlain saw this and made a point which I think is right. He says that there is no such thing as authentic anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism amongst American conservatives, or for that matter, I think Western European conservatives. And I think he's dead right. And I say this as someone, I'm 52, and I think I've been political since I was in my teens. And I literally have been to 9 out of 10 provinces. I've been all over the West where rednecks are supposed to be. In my entire life, I promise you, hand to God, I have never seen anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, anti-Israel extremism on the right. I just haven't seen it. I've seen a lot of it on the progressive left, the coalition between Islamists and woke, critical race theory, Marxist cultural activists who say that Israel's the oppressor. So I think that when you see people like Lauren Chen and others, perhaps like Andrew Tate, online taking a hard-line anti-Semitic stand, now that we know that Lauren Chen was taking Russian money, I think it's worth asking, is that what caused that? Now, look, I don't think that there's anything on the face of it that's illegal about taking money from a secret investor to have a certain political point of view. I think it's perhaps unethical to not disclose that you're actually a propagandist or a salesman when you're pretending to be a business person. But I think what the criminal matter may be is that if they were working for a foreign government, doing errands for a foreign government in the United States, and not registering as a foreign agent, that could be what gets them in trouble. Unfortunately, we don't have that law in Canada, which is why Canada is overrun with foreign agents. Like I say, the Department of Justice accused Lauren Chen and her husband of funneling about $10 million into this little company over the last year. And holy cow, did some of those guys get paid. But $10 million, even real US dollars, let's call that 13 million Canadian, it is a sliver of a fraction of what state broadcasters get away with in Canada. I see the CBC is feasting on this story because Lauren Chen, like I say, is originally from Montreal, and Lauren Southern, one of the talent, was from Vancouver. And fair enough, those two, I think, were amongst the ringleaders. But it's a little bit much for the CBC, which is a state broadcaster, to criticize Russia Today, another state broadcaster, as if the CBC is morally superior. I mean, I suppose they're more open about their state broadcaster, whereas Lauren Chen's little Russian team was secretive about it. So I suppose in that sense, the CBC is more ethical.